I've always been a man of routine. My name's Daniel Carter, a 42-year-old architect with a modest firm in Portland. My life, up until that point, had been predictable, comfortably so. I'd wake up at 6:30, brew a pot of coffee, kiss my wife Sarah goodbye as she headed to her job at the marketing agency, and then settle into my own day. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years, and while the early passion had mellowed into something softer, I thought we were solid. She was my anchor, blonde, sharp-witted, with a laugh that could light up a room. We'd built a life together. A cozy house in the suburbs, a golden retriever named Max, and plans for a future that didn't need to be flashy to feel meaningful. That morning, though, something felt off. It was subtle. A flicker in her eyes as she grabbed her keys. A pause in her usual "love you, Dan" that I couldn't quite place. I brushed it off. Work had been hectic for her lately. She'd been staying late, claiming client deadlines were piling up. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She'd never given me a reason not to. But as I sat at my drafting table later that day, sketching out a new office building, that flicker nagged at me. I tried to focus on the clean lines of my design, but my mind kept drifting back to her. To us. By evening, she texted me, "running late again. Big pitch tomorrow. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. I typed "okay, good luck," and hit send, but the unease grew. Max nudged my leg, whining for his walk, and I grabbed his leash, hoping the crisp October air would clear my head. We wandered the neighborhood, passing houses glowing with warm light, and I told myself I was being paranoid. Sarah was dedicated to her career, always had been. That's what I loved about her. Still, as Max sniffed at a lamppost, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping out of my grasp. When I got home, I poured a glass of bourbon and sank into the couch. The house felt too quiet without her. I scrolled through my phone, landing on a photo of us from last summer. Sarah grinning on a hiking trail, her arms slung around my shoulders. I smiled faintly, but the unease lingered. It wasn't until I opened my laptop to check emails that I noticed something odd. Her work calendar, synced to our shared account, showed no meetings past 4 p.m. today. No late-night pitch prep. I frowned, refreshing the page as if it might change. Maybe she'd forgotten to update it. That had to be it. But as I sipped my drink, the bourbon burning my throat, a question burrowed into my mind. Where was she really? The next day, I tried to act normal. Sarah breezed in that morning, all apologies and hurried kisses, claiming she'd crashed at the office after a marathon session with her team. She looked tired, shadows under her eyes, hair slightly mussed, but her smile was bright, disarming. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, mostly. "You're working too hard," I said, handing her a mug of coffee. She laughed, brushing it off with a wave of her hand. "You know me, Dan. Type A to a fault." I nodded, forcing a chuckle, but my stomach churned. At work, I couldn't focus. My pencil hovered over blueprints, tracing the same line over and over until the paper smudged. I kept replaying her words, her casual dismissal. It wasn't the first time she'd stayed late recently. 3 nights this week alone, plus a weekend team retreat a month ago. I'd never questioned it before, but now every memory felt suspect. Was I imagining things? I decided to test the waters. That evening, when she got home, I casually asked about her pitch. "How'd it go? Land the big client?" She froze for a split second, barely noticeable, then launched into a vague story about a demanding exec and a tight deadline. "We pulled it off, though," she said, beaming. "Celebrating tomorrow with the team." "Nice," I replied, keeping my tone light. "Where are you going?" She hesitated again, just long enough to make my pulse quicken. "Oh, probably that new wine bar downtown. Nothing fancy." I nodded, filing it away. After dinner, as she scrolled through her phone on the couch, I slipped upstairs and opened my laptop. Her calendar still showed no late meetings yesterday. I dug deeper, pulling up our credit card statement, something I rarely checked. There it was, a charge from a hotel bar 2 nights ago, 9:47 p.m. My heart thudded. She hadn't mentioned a hotel. Maybe it was a client thing. Maybe. Couldn't sleep that night. Lying beside her, listening to her soft breathing, I felt like a stranger in my own bed. The next day, I called in sick, something I never did, and drove downtown. I parked near her office, watching from a distance as she stepped out at lunchtime. She wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a confident stride. They laughed, her hand brushing his arm. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Could be a coworker, I told myself. But when they stopped at a cafe and he leaned in close, whispering something that made her blush, I knew it wasn't just work. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed proof. Something concrete to shatter the doubt gnawing at me. That night, she left for her team celebration, wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. Red, fitted, the kind of thing she'd once worn for me. "Don't wait up," she called, her heels clicking out the door. I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my keys. The wine bar she'd mentioned was busy when I arrived, but she wasn't there. I circled the block, my pulse racing, until I spotted her car parked outside a boutique hotel 3 streets over. My chest tightened. I parked a block away and waited. An hour later, she emerged, hair tousled, lipstick faded, with the same man from lunch. He had his arm around her waist, guiding her toward a sleek black Audi. They lingered by the car, her laughter cutting through the night air, and then he kissed her. Not a peck. A deep, lingering kiss that made my stomach lurch. I fumbled for my phone, snapping photos through the windshield, my hands shaking. They drove off together, and I sat there, numb, the images burning into my mind. Back home, I pored over the evidence. The hotel bar charge, the calendar lies, the man, his face now seared into my memory. I couldn't unsee it. My wife, my Sarah, wrapped up in someone else. I dug through her social media, cross-referencing her posts with the dates she'd been working late. A pattern emerged, nights she'd claimed exhaustion, paired with vague, smiling selfies. Then I found him, James Ellison, a senior VP at her agency. His LinkedIn profile confirmed it. Same dark hair, same smug grin. He'd commented on her posts, innocuous little "great shot," remarks I'd never thought twice about. Now they felt like taunts. I didn't sleep, couldn't. The betrayal sank into me like a slow poison, twisting every memory of us into something ugly. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't just confront her. I'd destroy them both, not with violence, but with something sharper, colder. I called a private investigator I'd found online, a gruff ex-cop named Rick. "I need everything," I told him. "Photos, texts, whatever you can get." He didn't ask questions, just took my deposit and promised results. As I hung up, Sarah texted, *, morning, slept like a rock. You okay? *, I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched, and typed back, *, fine. You? *, she didn't know it yet, but the game had changed. The next week was torture. Sarah floated through our life like nothing was wrong. Cooking dinner, walking Max, chatting about her day, while I watched her every move, searching for cracks in her facade. She didn't suspect a thing. Rick worked fast, delivering a preliminary report by Friday. James Ellison, 45, married, 2 kids, a rising star at the agency. He and Sarah had been meeting at hotels, restaurants, even his lake house upstate. Rick included grainy photos, her slipping into his car, their hands intertwined at a diner. Each image was a knife twist, but I forced myself to study them, memorizing every detail. I started planning. Revenge wasn't enough. It had to be surgical, devastating. I knew Sarah valued her career above almost anything. She'd clawed her way up from junior copywriter to creative director, thriving on respect and recognition. James, too, had a reputation to protect, a perfect suburban life to lose. I'd hit them where it hurt most. Their pride, their stability. But I needed more, something undeniable to wield against them. Rick promised a full dossier soon, including phone records and, if he could manage it, audio. Meanwhile, I played the oblivious husband. "How's work?" I'd ask over dinner, watching her spin tales of late nights and team wins. She'd smile, oblivious to the rage simmering behind my eyes. One night, she mentioned James casually. "Oh, James had this great idea for the campaign." And I nearly choked on my wine. "Sounds like a smart guy," I said, my voice steady. She nodded, unsuspecting, while I pictured his hands on her. His lips where mine should have been. Took everything not to smash the glass in my hand. I started digging on my own, too. I logged into our shared cloud account late one night, finding a folder she'd labeled work stuff. Most of it was mundane presentations, emails, but buried in a subfolder were photos. Her and James, laughing at a bar. Her in a hotel robe, winking at the camera. My vision blurred with fury. I copied everything to a USB drive, my hands trembling. This wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. She'd kept these moments, relived them, while I slept beside her, clueless. Rick's full report arrived 10 days later. A thick envelope stuffed with photos, transcripts, and a USB of recorded calls. I locked myself in my home office, poring over it. The calls were the worst. Sarah's voice, soft and teasing, promising James a night he wouldn't forget. He'd laughed, calling her his dirty little secret. I listened until my ears rang, then replayed it, letting the disgust fuel me. The photos showed more. Stolen moments in his car. A weekend at the lake house while I'd been on a work trip. Rick had even tracked down the wife, Emily Ellison. Blonde, poised, a schoolteacher unaware of her husband's double life. I built my plan carefully. First, I'd expose them, not just to each other's spouses, but to everyone they knew. Sarah's agency had a big gala coming up, a black tie event where she'd be honored for her latest campaign. James would be there, too, schmoozing with clients. It was perfect. I hired a tech guy, a freelancer I found through a discreet forum, to hack their work emails and compile every incriminating message. I didn't care about the cost. I wanted ammunition. Next, I contacted Emily. I met her at a coffee shop an hour away, posing as a concerned colleague. "I think James is in trouble," I said, sliding her a folder of photos. Nothing too explicit, just enough to plant the seed. Her face crumpled, but she didn't cry. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching the folder. I knew she'd confront him, and that chaos would be my opening. I didn't tell her about Sarah yet. I wanted that reveal to be mine. Back home, I kept up the act. Sarah noticed I was quieter, asking if I was stressed. "Just work?" I lied, kissing her forehead. She bought it, snuggling closer, and I fought the urge to recoil. The gala was a week away, and I was ready. I'd rented a projector, drafted a slideshow, photos, texts, audio clips, and booked a spot at the venue under a fake name. They'd built their affair on lies. I'd tear it down with truth. And when the dust settled, they'd have nothing left. The week before the gala felt like walking a tightrope. Every moment with Sarah was a performance. Smiling through breakfast, nodding at her stories, pretending her touch didn't make my skin crawl. She was oblivious, humming as she picked out a gown for the event, a shimmering silver number that hugged her curves. "What do you think, Dan?" she asked, twirling in front of me. "Stunning," I said, my voice flat but convincing. She beamed, oblivious to the storm I was brewing. I'd spent hours refining my plan, rehearsing every step until it was second nature. The projector was hidden in my car trunk, the slideshow polished to a razor's edge, each slide a dagger aimed at their lives. Rick called with an update. Emily had confronted James. He denied everything at first, but when she showed him the photos, he'd crumbled, claiming it was just a fling. Emily wasn't buying it. She'd kicked him out, and he was crashing at a friend's place, scrambling to keep his family intact. I could have stopped there, let their affair collapse under its own weight, but that wasn't enough. Sarah hadn't faced consequences yet, and I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I thanked Rick and told him to keep digging. I needed every scrap of dirt he could find. At work, I kept my head down, churning out designs on autopilot. My colleagues noticed I was off. Mark, my partner, even asked if I was okay. "Just tired," I lied, forcing a grin. He didn't push, but I caught him watching me later, concern creasing his brow. I couldn't tell him the truth, not yet. The gala was my stage and I'd play my role alone. That night, I tested the projector in the garage, projecting the slideshow onto a blank wall. Sarah's voice echoed through the speakers. Flirty, conspiratorial, followed by James's low chuckle. Photos flashed. Her in his arms, their secret smiles. I watched it loop, my hands clenched, until Max whined at the door, pulling me back to reality. Sarah came home late again that night, claiming another team meeting. I didn't challenge her, just nodded and poured her a glass of wine. She rambled about work, her eyes bright, and I wondered how long she'd been living this double life. How many nights had she lied to my face? I excused myself early, claiming a headache, and locked myself in my office. I pulled up the gala's guest list. Agency execs, clients, local press, and smiled grimly. They'd all see it. Every last one of them. 2 days before the gala, I met my tech guy, a wiry kid named Kyle, in a dimly lit diner. He slid me a USB drive across the table. Emails, texts, even some deleted voicemails I recovered. He said, his voice low. "You've got gold here, man." I paid him in cash, no questions asked, and drove home to review it. The messages were worse than I'd imagined. Sarah gushing about James's charm, planning their next rendezvous, laughing about how clueless I was. One text hit like a punch. Asterisk, "Dan's so predictable. Makes this easier." Asterisk, I read it again, my vision blurring, then saved it to the slideshow. She'd mocked me, and now I'd turn it against her. I fine-tuned the presentation, adding the new evidence. The audio clips were damning. Her giggling about a quick getaway, while I was at a conference, him promising to make it worth her while. The photos Kyle had recovered were even more intimate. Blurry shots from a hotel room, her hair splayed across a pillow. I felt sick, but I kept going, building a narrative no one could ignore. The gala was a celebration of her success. I'd make it a funeral for her reputation. Sarah was buzzing with excitement as the event neared. She spent hours on her hair and makeup, chattering about the award she'd receive. "It's a big deal, Dan," she said, adjusting her earrings. "Could mean a promotion." I nodded, hiding my smirk. "You deserve it," I said, the irony thick in my throat. She kissed me goodbye that morning, off to a final prep meeting. And I watched her go, knowing it was the last time she'd leave this house as my wife. I packed the projector, the USB, and a suit, black, sharp, a mourner's attire, and drove to the venue early to set up. The hotel ballroom was already buzzing with staff when I arrived. I posed as a tech assistant, flashing a fake badge Kyle had mocked up, and slipped into the AV room. The projector synced seamlessly, the slideshow hidden behind a password. I tested it once. Sarah's voice filled the room, then James's, and shut it off, my heart pounding. I left, blending into the evening crowd, and waited. The trap was set. The night of the gala, I arrived late, slipping in as the crowd mingled over cocktails. Sarah was radiant in her silver gown, working the room with that effortless charm I'd once adored. James was there too, in a tailored tux, laughing with a group of execs. They hadn't spotted me yet, and I kept my distance, nursing a scotch at the bar. The room buzzed with anticipation. Speeches, awards, a night of self-congratulation. I watched Sarah accept her plaque, her smile wide as applause rippled through the crowd. "Thank you," she said into the mic, voice steady. "This means everything to me." I slipped out during her speech, heading to the AV room. The tech crew was distracted, chatting over headsets, and I logged into the system unnoticed. The slideshow was ready, cued behind the agency's promotional video. My hands shook as I typed the password, but I steadied myself. This wasn't about nerves. It was about justice. I returned to the ballroom just as the lights dimmed for the video. A montage of campaigns, smiling faces, triumphant music. Sarah stood near the stage, James a few feet away, both basking in the glow of their success. The video ended, and the screen flickered. A murmur ran through the crowd as my slideshow began. Not with fanfare, but with Sarah's voice, soft and teasing. Asterisk, can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Asterisk heads turned. Her smile faltered. James's face drained of color. The first photo flashed up, her in his car, his hand on her thigh. Gasps rippled through the room. Then the texts. Asterisk, Dan's so predictable. Asterisk, her eyes found mine across the crowd, wide with panic. But I held her gaze, unflinching. The audio kicked in, his voice, promising her a night to remember. And the room erupted in whispers. Sarah stumbled toward the stage, mouthing "Stop it." But I didn't move. The slides kept coming. Hotel rooms, stolen kisses, her laughing about me. James bolted for the exit, but the crowd parted, staring. Clients clutched their drinks. Execs exchanged stunned glances, and the press scribbled furiously. Sarah's award clattered to the floor as she fled, tears streaking her face. But the slideshow played on, relentless. I timed it perfectly. 10 minutes of raw, unfiltered truth. When it ended, the room was silent, every eye on me. I set my glass down and walked out, leaving chaos in my wake. I didn't go home that night. I checked into a motel, the adrenaline still coursing through me. My phone buzzed nonstop. Sarah's calls, texts, voicemails begging me to talk. Asterisk, Dan, please, I can explain. Asterisk, I didn't reply. Rick texted too. Asterisk, heard it went down. You okay? Asterisk, I typed back a simple yes and shut off the phone. The gala had been a demolition, and I felt no remorse. Only a cold, hollow satisfaction. I'd stripped them bare, exposed their lies to everyone who mattered. Now I'd let the pieces fall. By morning, the fallout was everywhere. A local reporter had posted a blurry video of the slideshow online, and it was spreading fast. Sarah's agency issued a vague statement about personal matters. But the damage was done. Clients were pulling out, her team distancing themselves. James's wife, Emily, filed for divorce that day, citing the photos I'd given her. I'd mailed her the full dossier after the gala, anonymously, letting her wield it in court. His career teetered too. Rumors swirled that the agency was cutting ties to save face. Sarah showed up at the motel around noon, banging on my door. Dan, let me in, she yelled, voice hoarse. I opened it, staring at her, disheveled, mascara-streaked, a shadow of the woman I'd married. How could you? She demanded, shoving past me. You ruined me. I laughed, a bitter sound that made her flinch. You ruined us, I said, voice low. 12 years, Sarah. And you threw it away for him. She sank onto the bed, sobbing, but I felt nothing. It wasn't supposed to happen, she stammered. I got caught up. I cut her off. Save it. You're done, she begged. Promised to quit to fix us, but I was stone. I handed her a folder. Divorce papers, drafted days ago. Sign them, I said, or I send the rest to your parents, your friends, everyone. Her hands shook as she took it, realization dawning. I'd won. She left without a word, the door clicking shut behind her. The next week, I moved out, taking Max and a few essentials to a rented apartment downtown. Sarah stayed in the house. I didn't care enough to fight for it. The divorce was fast-tracked. She signed without contest, too broken to argue. Her career imploded, resignations followed the gala, her award rescinded, her name poisoned in the industry. James fared no better. Emily took half his assets, his kids refused to see him, and the agency quietly let him go. I watched it unfold from a distance, reading updates online, feeling the weight lift with every headline. I wasn't done, though. One last piece remained. Sarah's parents, retired, sweet people who treated me like a son, deserved to know. I drove to their place in Salem, a 2-hour trip, and sat them down. She betrayed me, I said simply, handing them a slim folder. Just enough evidence to prove it, not enough to crush them. Her mom cried. Her dad stared at the floor, but they thanked me for my honesty. You didn't deserve this, Daniel, her dad said, voice thick. I nodded, leaving them to grieve their daughter's fall. Back home, I rebuilt. Work picked up. Mark took on more clients, keeping me busy. and Max kept me grounded, his wagging tail a quiet comfort. Sarah tried reaching out once more. A letter slipped under my door. Asterisk. I'm sorry. I'll always love you. Asterisk. I burned it in the sink, watching the flames curl the paper to ash. James vanished from the grid. Rumor had it he'd moved east, chasing a fresh start. I didn't care. They were ghosts now, shadows of a life I'd torched. Looking back, I'd lost something too, trust, maybe, or the man I'd been. But I'd gained something sharper. Control. They'd underestimated me, thought me predictable, and I'd turned it into their undoing. The revenge was cruel, yes, but it was mine. And as I stood in my new place, Max at my feet, I felt the first real breath of freedom in months. The story was over. I'd written the ending. The weeks following the divorce were a strange mix of quiet and chaos. I'd settled into my new apartment, a stark, modern space with bare walls and a view of the city skyline. Max adjusted quickly, claiming a spot by the window where he'd watched the world go by, his tail thumping softly against the floor. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, drafting designs late into the night until my hands cramped and my eyes blurred. Mark noticed the shift, clapping me on the shoulder one day. You're a machine, Dan. Whatever's driving you, keep it up. I gave him a tight smile, saying nothing. He didn't need to know the fuel was rage, cooling now into something harder, more permanent. Sarah's absence left a void I hadn't expected. Not her specifically. I didn't miss her, but the rhythm of our life together. The clink of her coffee mug in the morning, the way she'd hum off-key while cooking. Those echoes lingered, mocking me, but I drowned them out with routine. I sold the house through a realtor, splitting the proceeds with her per the divorce terms. She'd moved into a small condo across town. According to Rick, who still kept tabs for me. She's a mess, he reported over the phone. Barely leaves. Looks like she's aged 10 years. I grunted, uninterested. Her ruin was complete. I had no need to gloat. The online buzz about the gala faded, replaced by fresher scandals, but the damage stuck. Her agency lost 2 major clients, and whispers followed her name in Portland's tight-knit marketing circle. James's fall was steeper. Emily's divorce lawyer had bled him dry, and his LinkedIn went dark, his once polished profile reduced to a ghost. I checked sometimes, late at night, not out of pity but curiosity. Had they reached out to each other, 2 drowning souls clinging to wreckage? Rick found no trace of contact. Their affair, once a blazing secret, had burned out in the spotlight. I'd turned on it. I started running again, something I hadn't done since college. The trails near my place were rugged, winding through damp forests and up steep hills. The burn in my legs, the cold air in my lungs. It steadied me. Max trotted beside me some days, his tongue lolling, and I'd let my mind empty, focusing only on the next step. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was close. The revenge had been a wildfire, consuming everything. Now I was sifting through the ashes, deciding what to rebuild. 3 months post-gala, life felt almost normal, until Emily called. I'd given her my number back in that coffee shop, a lifeline she'd never used until now. Her voice was shaky but firm. Daniel, can we meet? I need to talk. I hesitated, then agreed, curious despite myself. We met at a quiet park, Max sniffing the grass nearby as she sat beside me on a bench. She looked different, thinner, her eyes sharper, like she'd shed a layer of softness. I wanted to thank you, she said, staring at the horizon, for showing me the truth. I'd have stayed blind otherwise. I nodded, unsure what to say. She twisted a ring on her finger, her wedding band, still there despite everything. James is gone, she continued. Moved to Boston, chasing some startup job. The kids hate him. I hate him. Her voice cracked, but she straightened, meeting my gaze. What about Sarah? Did she fight you? I shook my head. She signed the papers, collapsed under it all. Emily's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Good. They deserved it. We sat in silence after that, an odd kinship forming. 2 people scarred by the same betrayal, bound by its wreckage. She asked about my plans and I shrugged. Work. Max figuring it out. She nodded, then hesitated. If you ever want to grab coffee. Not about this. Just normal stuff. I'd like that. I studied her, surprised. It wasn't a date, not exactly, but an opening. Maybe, I said, leaving it there. She smiled faintly and left, her figure receding into the gray afternoon. I didn't know what to make of it. Friendship, maybe, or something else. But it stirred something in me, a flicker of possibility I hadn't felt in months. That night, I dreamed of Sarah for the first time since the divorce. She was at the gala, silver gown gleaming, but instead of fleeing, she laughed as the slideshow played, her voice echoing, Asterisk, you're predictable, Dan. Asterisk, I woke sweating, Max nudging my hand. The dream clung to me all day, a reminder of why I'd done it. Predictable? No. I'd rewritten the script, and she'd never see me coming again. 6 months after the gala, I got a package. No return address, just my name scrawled in black ink. Inside was a handwritten letter from Sarah, 3 pages of her tight, looping script. I almost tossed it, but curiosity won. She wrote about regret, how she'd lost everything. Her job, her friends, her pride. Asterisk. I see it now, what I did to you. I was selfish, stupid. James was a mistake. A rush I couldn't stop chasing. I hate myself for it. Asterisk, she didn't ask for forgiveness. Just understanding. Ending with, asterisk. You were right to do what you did. I'd have hated you less if you'd just yelled. Asterisk. I read it twice, then set it aside. Part of me wanted to feel something. Pity, maybe. But it wouldn't come. She'd penned her confession too late. A plea to a man who no longer existed. I didn't burn it this time. I filed it in a drawer with the divorce papers, a relic of a war-I'd won. But it stirred the embers and I called Rick. She's reaching out, I said. What's she up to? He dug around and reported back. She'd taken a low-level job at a small firm, was seeing a therapist, living quietly. No men, no drama, he said. She's a shell. I thanked him and hung up, satisfied. Her life was her punishment. I didn't need to add more. Emily and I started meeting occasionally, coffee, sometimes lunch. It was easy, unburdened by expectations. She'd talk about her kids, her teaching job. I'd share bits of my work, Max's antics. We never lingered on our exes, but they hovered between us, a shared scar. One day, she laughed at something I said, a real, unguarded laugh, and I caught myself staring. She noticed, blushing slightly, and the air shifted. This is nice, she said softly. Yeah. I agreed, surprised by how much I meant it. It wasn't love, not yet, but a thread I hadn't expected to find. A year after the gala, I ran into James. It was accidental, Portland's not that big. And there he was at a gas station pumping fuel into a beat-up sedan. He looked rougher. Gray in his hair, lines etched deep around his eyes. He saw me too, freezing mid-motion. For a moment, I thought he'd bolt, but he squared his shoulders and nodded. Daniel, he said, voice flat. James, I replied, keeping it cold. We stood there, the pump clicking, until he spoke again. You got me good. Fair play. I didn't respond, just watched him. He shifted, uncomfortable. I didn't mean for it to blow up like that. Neither did she. I stepped closer, voice low. You didn't care what it did to me. Or Emily. Don't play the victim now. He flinched, looking away. I've lost everything, wife, kids, career. You happy? I considered it, then nodded. Yeah, I am. He stared, then climbed into his car and drove off, tires squealing. I watched him go, feeling the last knot in my chest loosen. He wasn't my problem anymore. Emily invited me to her place that weekend, a casual dinner with her kids. They were wary at first, eyeing me over spaghetti, but warmed up when Max bounded in, licking their faces. We laughed, played board games, and for a few hours I forgot the past. Later, as the kids slept, she poured us wine. You're different now, she said, studying me. Harder, but lighter too. I nodded. Had to break to rebuild. She reached for my hand, tentative, and I let her. It was small, but it was something. 18 months after the gala, I stood in my apartment, blueprints spread across the table. My firm's biggest project yet, a community center I designed from scratch. Mark had pushed me to take the lead, and it was paying off. Contracts were rolling in, my name gaining weight. Max snoozed nearby, the city lights glinting through the window. I carved out a life from the rubble, one I could live with. Emily and I were steady now, not rushing, just letting it grow. Her kids called me Dan, and Max had a bed at her place. It wasn't the future I'd planned with Sarah, but it was mine. I thought about the revenge sometimes, late at night. Had it been cruel? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Sarah and James had gambled with my trust, and I'd made them pay. Stripped them of their illusions, their safety nets. I didn't regret it. The slideshow, the gala, the fallout, it had been my reckoning, a fire I'd set to clear the way. Now, standing here, I felt the weight of it lift. I'd lost a wife, a home, a version of myself, but I'd gained something fiercer. A man who wouldn't bend, who'd fight for what mattered. Sarah sent one last note a month ago. Short. No apologies. Just, asterisk, I hope you're well. Asterisk, I didn't reply. She was a stranger now, a chapter closed. James was a faded memory, a cautionary tale. I poured a bourbon, raised it to the empty room, and drank. To endings. To beginnings. To me. The story was mine, and I'd written it my way.